Hey, what's going on, everybody? AJ Shulo here, going to give you guys the breakdown for UFC 263 taking place on Saturday. Wanted to get this out before Bellator 260, which takes place in about an hour and a half time recording this. Do a little later breakdown. I know that I released it super early last event. Just wanted to mix things up, try things out, and just see how it rolls, trial and error. We're going to talk about this card. Good card from top to bottom. A lot of fights. Everybody made weight, which is always a good thing. Everybody looked healthy. Well, I take that back. So Peterson actually missed weight, but the fight is still on between him and Hooper. Hooper accepted the purse. Fight is on. We have a full go at 14 cards here, right? So without further ado, let's just dive right in. If I could just share my screen. There we go. There you are. Beautiful. So here we go. So first fight of the night, Carlos Felipe and Jake Collier. Time recording this here, Collier actually sits as an underdog. You know, he could be had anywhere between plus 150 and plus 135 across the books. And I tend to agree with some of the action coming in on Collier. I mean, I think this is a fight that's going to be contested on the feet. Neither guy seems interested in taking the other down. Even if Felipe wanted to wrestle here, I think that Collier's got good enough takedown defense to keep it upright. I actually think that if takedowns were to be landed here, they more likely come from Collier. Not that I'm banking on him too, but he would be the party more willing to attempt the takedowns. And so contested on the feet, and Collier's a little bit longer. He's a little 3 inches taller, 3 inches of reach. And while these two are kicking range, the biggest thing that sticks out to me with Felipe is while he could throw hands, he's durable. He's shown to come forward and throw at a decent pace. He doesn't really leverage any kicks at range, and Collier does. Collier has actually a diverse set of kicks that he could utilize at distance. And I think that there will be a range, you know, a kicking range where Collier will be able to hit Felipe, and Felipe won't be able to hit him back, right? So that gives Collier a bit of an advantage. Now, Felipe's way of winning this fight is force the pocket exchanges. He wants to close distance, get on the inside of the longer Collier, and try and do damage, right? Collier has been hurt plenty of times in the UFC. We saw him hurt as recently as last year against Tom Aspinall. He was also rocked by Marcel Fortuna. So that's going to be how Felipe wins this fight if he were to win. He probably just hurts Collier in the pocket, and he either puts him out or he does enough damage to win at least 2 rounds. If this fight goes the distance, though, I actually favor Collier. He's got a higher work rate. I think he's a more varied striker. I think he's the more technical striker, cleaner boxer as well. And that should help him win the aggregate of the exchanges. It's just a matter of, what form, I guess, does he show up in? Is it the guy that got knocked out quickly by Aspinall, who's a great prospect and everything, or is it the guy that showcased tremendous volume against John Vellante that we saw last time out back in December? So I think it's a fight that based on the ranges, I think that in the pocket, that's where Felipe could have some success. But don't get me wrong, I actually think that Collier is the better, cleaner boxer. He could have a lot of success countering Felipe, better footwork in my opinion. And then Collier's got the kicking range to his advantage as well. So I'm actually going to pick Jake Collier to win here. I just think the more experienced guy, more varied striker, higher pace should be able to help him win the aggregate of the striking exchanges. Y'all know I got NBA Top Shot up here. I mean, I reserved a pack, so I got to stay in the queue. So apologies for that. Just please ignore that. Faraz Ziem and Luigi Vendramini. So the second fight of the card, right? It seems like a striker versus grappler matchup, right? Vendramini is a BJJ black belt. Ziem comes from actually a K1 kickboxing background. So very, very impressive. I hold K1 in high regard if you're going to, come from that kickboxing background. And Ziem's a young kid. I think he's improving. They're actually both young and improving. I did think that Ziem looked a bit better against Malarkey. But that said, we still saw him taken down, right? We still saw him taken down. We saw him get controlled a bit. And then when Malarkey wanted to pass guard, he gave up an easy underhook, and then Ziem was able to break out of it and make his way back to the feet. And win at least 2 rounds there to get the decision over Malarkey. Some people thought it was a bad decision. After going back and watching it, I mean, it's one of those fights I could see the case either way. I think that Ziem did more damage, not a significant amount, but just did more damage overall. But Malarkey had more control, and Ziem also had his fair share of control as well. So again, I don't think it was like a horrible robbery of a decision, but as it pertains to this matchup, I just think that Ziem's the more technical striker. He doesn't have great defense, tends to back up with his head in a straight line, as a long fighter usually does, just rely on that length. But again, he's just got more tools as a striker, more technical, more seasoned as a striker. So it's on Vendramini here to get this fight to the ground and try and either hold down Ziem at least 2 rounds or try and submit him. it's possible. I mean, Vendramini is a BJJ black belt. He took Zaleski dos Santos's back in his UFC debut. I mean, that's very, very impressive. I'm not expecting him to knock out ZM. So again, he's going to try and get that grappling going. And I think it's possible. I don't think ZM's got good takedown defense, but Vendramini definitely is not a good wrestler. There's not a lot of footage of him, certainly not a ton in the UFC, but even going back to the regional scene of him wrestling, but the glimpses we've seen, he's not a great wrestler. It's not to say that he couldn't have improved in the meantime, but I'm actually going to side here with ZM. It's a hesitant pick. I agree with the odds being close because, again, it's going to be a fight where if ZM has, a striker battle, it's going to be ZM all day. But if it's, taking place on the ground, Vendramini does happen to get the takedowns, does happen to take ZM's back in the clinch, it's going to be his fight, right? So it's going to take place on, or it's who's going to win this fight is going to be determined by where the fight takes place, right? So I don't want people to think like just because I'm picking ZM doesn't mean I can't see Vendramini winning. Of course, Vendramini could win. He's got a clear path to victory, as I just laid out. So Vendramini is going to be my prediction. Next fight, this was the one weight miss, Steven Peterson and Chase Hooper. Doesn't change my opinion of the matchup because, again, I can't quantify how exactly that will affect Peterson here, right? Again, maybe it helps him. Maybe he feels a little stronger, a little less, not so much dehydrated from the extra cuts, missed by about 2.5 pounds. But regardless, I don't think that the stylistic matchup changes all that much. The stylistic matchup to me is the most compelling facet of the fight. Beyond all the interviews, beyond all the noise at weigh-ins, the stylistic matchup, the skill level of each fighter, which is composed within of the stylistic matchup. Those are the most important, compelling elements of the fight, and that's what I'm looking at here. And why I favor Peterson is pretty simple, honestly. I think he's a better striker. Not that he's a great striker, but he's better than Hooper, more comfortable, has a higher pace, hits harder probably too. And he's a better wrestler. Peterson's not great as a wrestler. We've seen him taken down easily. The 75% takedown defense on UFCstats.com is a little bit deceiving because going back on tape and watching him fight Martin Bravo, he was taken down easily there a couple times. Actually was losing that fight up until he landed the spinning back fist, right? It was at Mexico City altitude, which is tremendously high, higher than Denver altitude. So it makes sense why Bravo got a little tired. But as for Hooper, it kind of helps him in a way because if Peterson wants this fight to the ground, and Peterson has shown to be that type of guy to do that, he's very comfortable being on the ground, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, he's always threatening from his back, that sort of thing. That's going to be what Hooper wants. Hooper's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. It's just with Hooper, we're talking about a guy who just is not physically imposing for this weight class and lands takedowns at a rate of 7% accuracy. So Hooper's success as an offensive wrestler is just strongly mitigated in general. It's on him to, basically pull guard and try and look for a sweep or a submission off of his back. And I'm going to trust Peterson as a top control grappler to be defensively responsible enough to avoid getting swept, avoid getting submitted, and probably win the fight via top control and probably best Hooper on the feet. Again, it's one of these things. Hooper in his last fight against Peter Barrett, for instance, I can't just look at the destination, the result of Hooper winning that fight, right? I mean, let's look at what happened before then. Peter Barrett was beating him up, right? Because Hooper couldn't find a takedown. He's just very hittable on the feet, doesn't move his head off the center line. Technical footwork could be much improved. Again, don't get me wrong, Peterson's very hittable himself, doesn't do a good job moving his head. Footwork definitely could be much improved as well. But when we're talking about how they match up head-to-head, I actually think that Peterson holds more compelling advantages. That's why he's going to be my prediction here. Next fight, we got Matt Frevola and Terrence McKinney. We got Frevola here as a pretty big favorite, minus 205 up to minus 250, the highest I'm seeing. So I get why Frevola is the favorite. I totally understand. More UFC experience, more tested going 3 rounds, more prepared. McKinney's taking this fight on very short notice, stepping in for Frank Camacho. But is Frevola the type of guy I want to trust as a big favorite? I mean, not really. Again, I just, with all due respect, I think he's a decent wrestler, a good scrambler. He's got good cardio. But beyond that, what else does he really excel in? He's very hittable on the feet, doesn't move his head off the center line. We've seen him hurt multiple times. He got rocked by Jalen Turner, got rocked by Luis Pena, knocked down twice by Lando Venata, knocked down twice by Marco Polo Reyes and out. And McKinney doesn't have the sort of striking depth that those guys do. I think that those guys are far better technical strikers than McKinney, but just seeing Frevola hurt as often as he has just gives me a lot of pause for him at this line, to be honest with you. And McKinney's a guy who doesn't come from an NCAA Division I wrestling background, but he does have a collegiate wrestling background nonetheless. Junior college turned D2. I think he's going to be bigger and stronger than Frevola. Very good implementing the body lock here, the body triangle on the back. Very good at control, looking for that rear naked choke. But Frevola, again, very good submission grappler himself. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belts. They're both, I think, going to be capable of taking one another down. I think they're both very good scramblers. They're both good submission grapplers, and it could kind of be this wildly contested fight on the feet where, again, neither guy is defensively sound. They both are aggressive, throw with some power. And in that sort of fight, chaotic type brawl, either guy is capable of earning a knockout. And in terms of the wrestling and grappling exchanges, I actually think that McKinney, being the better athlete, the bigger guy, the higher wrestling pedigree, that should help him win. But again, I'm not that confident in him, right? And McKinney's a guy who has not been to decision ever in his pro MMA career. He's only been to the third round once. It's not to say I'm assuming his cardio is bad, but we have seen Frevola go 3 and still show good cardio, right? So I got to favor Frevola in terms of the cardio department, just based off what we know, right? And I'm willing to learn, and we hopefully we do get to see McKinney tested here for 15 minutes. But to be honest with you, I just see so many holes in his striking. Hands tend to drop. Just very wild in terms of his technique. Doesn't move his head off the center line. Very susceptible to counters. Even before Woodson knocked him out with that flying knee, Woodson was able to sting him with some straight punches. I know Woodson's a far better striker than Frevola, far longer as well. But just seeing the guy, how hittable he is, it makes me think that even Frevola, just basically what he does is just chuck an overhand right. It makes me think that he could land that overhand right. He's definitely got a better chance of landing it than, say, he did against guys like Jalen Turner and Luis Pena, guys that are just far more experienced in that realm in terms of striking. And so I'm going to pick Matt Frevola here, but I do consider McKinney a live underdog because stylistically it's not a bad fight for him at all. Again, they're just both pretty similar in terms of, wild, throw some power on the feet. And they both excel as wrestlers and grapplers, right? So it's not a bad fight for McKinney at all, but I'm going to pick Frevola because he's the guy he's not taking this fight on short notice. He's more prepared. I could trust his cardio more, and he's just been more tested in the UFC octagon, right? So Matt Frevola is going to be my prediction. Pannie Kianza taking on Alexis Davis. And this fight to me seems very, very binary. I think that on the feet, you got to favor Kianza. She just throws at a higher pace. She's more technical. She has better footwork, better defensively as well. She doesn't have good striking defense. She could definitely do a better job moving her head off the center line. We saw her get rocked by Julia Avila. We saw her get rocked by Macy Chiao-Son. So again, while she's got better striking defense here, it's not as if I can't see Davis landing a decent bit on her. And it's going to be kind of on Davis here to get this fight to the ground. And Davis, I would feel a bit more confident and perhaps even pick her to win if she was more persistent with pursuing the takedowns. But Davis at times is going large stretches without even attempting a takedown. Even going back to just the last fight against Sabina Mazo, she took Mazo down, yeah, but go back and watch it on film. She actually took her down from caught kicks. She was opportunistic with it. And that could be what happens here. Perhaps Kianza does throw some low kicks. Davis is able to catch them and dump her on her back, and she's able to seal off the whole round with some top control as the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. But I would like to see Davis a bit more persistent, go for the takedowns, because when she's in top position here, I think she could control Kianza. We saw Kianza controlled for the vast majority of the first round against Jara Eubanks. We saw her get her back taken by Julia Avila. We saw her get her back taken and submitted by Macy Chiao-Son. Davis definitely has potential here should she get this fight to the ground. It's just a matter of, does she get those takedowns? Do those opportunities materialize? Does she actually want to get the takedowns here? Go for it, right? And again, I'm just where she's at in her career, just very, very hittable on the feet as Davis. She's got some nice low kicks that I think she could utilize, but I got to favor Kianza out on the feet. Just, again, higher pace. She also comes from a judo fighting background, judo boxing. She's just got that more experience, that more pedigree as a striker. So I think that Kianza is going to be the fighter that's doing more damage down the stretch. But again, this is another one of those fights that I talked about with ZM and Vendramini earlier. Davis has a clear path to victory, right? So it's not as if even though I'm picking Kianza, I just can't see the path for Davis. No. Davis could win this fight. If she gets the fight to the ground, she could seal it off with top control and maybe even get a submission, right? Because I do think she's a much better submission grappler than these women that were able to dominate Kianza on the ground. Eubanks, Avila, and Chiao-Son, even if they are competent in that area, Davis is just, a very, very, very good submission grappler, in my opinion. So pick is Kianza, but again, I do consider Davis a live underdog. All right, moving on up. We got Hakeem Dawodu and Movsar Evlaev. So fun fight. This is like my favorite fight on the prelims. I'll just say that. My favorite fight. Two good prospects, in my opinion. I'm fairly high on both of them, even though I haven't outright bet them in the past. I just like them from a skill perspective. And this is a fight that I think you got to favor Movsar just because he's more durable on the feet. You know, I've seen Dawodu get clipped and submitted by Danny Henry. You know, even though Evlaev hasn't shown true one-hitter quitter type power, got to favor him in terms of the striking department just based on his durability. But Dawodu's a very good striker himself. They both have good volume. Dawodu's got good overall defense. He comes from a striking background, a Muay Thai background. Both defensively sound, both throw at high paces. And so when we're talking about the skill level of them as strikers, they're actually very, very similar. And it's just going to be kind of like we'll get to Riddell and Dober later on, who's just a little bit sharper on the feet that night. And you just don't really know until you actually see him in there, who's a little bit more technical. And I think they're both great technical strikers. So, again, favor Evlaev on the feet, but it's just ever so slightly. Just, again, more durable. I think of the two, he would be a little bit sharper, would be my guess. Better at moving in and out, that sort of thing. We saw that movement kind of stifle Dawodu a bit in that last fight against Chukugov. So, again, I'm favoring Evlaev on the feet, but as you can tell, it's just barely, right? So, but the other thing that Evlaev has going for him here is if there were to be takedowns landed here, they would come from him. He's just a much better wrestler, comes from the wrestling background. He's a good athlete. He's trained at Tiger Muay Thai in the past, American Top Team. I mean, this kid is truly a stud. But on the flip side, Dawodu has actually shown good takedown defense and good get-ups. So even though I think that Evlaev could mix in maybe anywhere between 1 to 5 takedowns in this fight, I'm not expecting him to go out here and just dominate Dawodu with top control. I think Dawodu will work back up to his feet and try and, give Evlaev a lot of resistance when he actually does go for the takedowns. Dawodu does have good takedown defense. He has strong hips. And so that's kind of the dynamic of the fight. I suppose Evlaev could take Dawodu's back. Dawodu did get his back taken by Julio Arce, but I am certain that Dawodu does have good overall defensive wrestling and grappling here. So I think it's going to be a fight of who actually gets the better on the feet. For the most part, but again, Evlaev does have the takedown upside to get mixed in there, even though if it's not a compelling advantage that he has. So again, I'm going to pick Evlaev, but I actually think this is a closely contested fight, and I would not want to, say throw Evlaev in a parlay at this line. It's just not something I would do. I have a lot of respect for Dawodu's game. I know that like on paper he's gone to some split decisions, but actually analyzing Dawodu from a skill level. He's actually a very, very good fighter. I hold him in high regard. So I'm going to pick Movsar Evlaev, but if I were to line this line, I would actually line it closer than odds indicate. Not to say that I'm betting the underdog here, because when I do bet underdogs, I want to cap them as the favorite, and that's just how I roll. Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. So another fight, right? Kind of going along with that trend. We got striker versus fighter that is wanting to get the fight to the ground with their wrestling and impose their grappling advantage, right? And Calderwood on the feet, you got to favor her as a striker. She just throws at a higher pace. She's more technical, coming from the Muay Thai background. I think especially kicking distance, Murphy doesn't throw many kicks at distance. I think Calderwood has a diverse set of kicks, front kicks, head kicks, low kicks. She could have success kicking Murphy at range, and even in the clinch too. JoJo's got a good Muay Thai clinch, knees, elbows, things like that. It'll be on Murphy to force the pocket exchanges, land a bit on JoJo. As a Muay Thai striker, she doesn't do the best job moving her head off the center line. Murphy does have underrated boxing. She has decent volume. It'll be on Murphy to force the pocket exchanges, land a bit on JoJo, and then impose her wrestling here. Murphy does have a solid body lock takedown, right? And she's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. And so JoJo, she doesn't have the best takedown defense. She was taken out easily in just her last fight by Jessica Ai. She's taken down easily in the past as well by other fighters. Andrea Lee, she could be controlled. Andrea was able to control her to seal out round 1. So that's going to be the dynamic of the fight. I think Murphy in the pocket and with her wrestling and top control, that's going to be her wheelhouse. But JoJo in the clinch, assuming Murphy's not reaching for a body lock trying to take her down, JoJo's going to be landing more damage in the clinch and landing more kicks at distance. And that's going to be the makeup of the fight. I'm actually going to side here with Lauren Murphy. She should be able to control where the fight goes. And I tend to think that gives her a pretty big advantage here. And that could literally lead to a round of top control or potentially even a submission, dare I say. I know she's coming off just her first submission win in the UFC, but I mean, Joanne's been submitted in 3 of her losses, right? You know, she got submitted by Jessica Andrade from a guillotine. She got submitted from Marina Moroza's guard back in the day, and she got submitted just 2 fights ago from Jennifer Maia's guard. But Jennifer Maia was setting up the armbar. It was very, very obvious, and still she was able to submit JoJo. So when people say she's improving there, I agree that she is improving there. But has she closed that gap between her and Murphy? I don't think so, with all due respect. JoJo's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt, just what we've seen out of her, comparing to Murphy's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and seeing what we've seen out of her just makes me favor Murphy as a grappler and a wrestler here. So I'm actually going to pick another underdog here and Laura Murphy to get the slight upset. Eric Anders and Darren Stewart. Before we get into this fight, just gonna get some comments here. Matt's in here. What's up, Matt? How you doing, brother? Appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by. Love you. Good luck. Christian is in here. What's up, Christian? What is more difficult, UFC DFS or UFC betting? That's a great question, man. I think it's 2 different mindsets, right? You know, when I'm playing betting, I'm trying to, or excuse me, when I'm betting, why am I saying playing betting? It's play DFS versus betting MMA. Betting MMA is more so I want to, you know, cap these fighters at a line and then want to bet them thinking that they'll win and that there's value on the line. So in other words, I'm more so focused on like one fighter. Like I'm kind of planting my flag on one side of a fight if it's a money line. I'm not worried about hedging, and I'm kind of adapting that mindset. Whereas in DFS, to put it simply, and I could go on and on about this, perhaps I make another video, but put it simply, in DFS, I'm more okay with hedging, right? I want to make a lot of lineups, and I'm a 150 lineup type of guy. I'm more okay with just, you know, mixing in different exposures, embracing variance. And I do embrace variance in MMA betting as well, but I'm more so inclined to do it on a slate-to-slate basis in MMA DFS because I'm working with more lineups, and we just see all this these like crazy scores happen in some of these fights that we don't have as much data in. You know, when I'm betting MMA, I want to bet in spots where we have sufficient data in, whereas in DraftKings, you know, we want to play all these fights, right? But some fights we just don't have sufficient data in, and we're kind of just embracing that, right? So I hope that makes sense. I appreciate you asking me that question. That's a great question, and I wish you nothing but the best, brother. So getting back to this fight, we got Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart too, right? And this is a very, very interesting fight. And look, I mean, there is a chance that the fight doesn't play out exactly how it did the first time, but if hypothetically, you know, let's just pretend like I have no lean on this fight and I just watched the first fight. There's nothing from the first fight that gives me sort of any sort of inspiration to back Stewart, right? From the first fight, what did we learn, right? In the first fight, we learned, and this was something that I didn't consider going into it, because Stewart has shown to be very durable throughout his career, is that Anders could hurt Stewart, and he could hurt Stewart rather badly. We also learned that Anders dominated Stewart in the clinch. He's much stronger than Stewart, right? And we also learned that Anders could take him down a bunch of times, right? So looking at all these advantages that Anders had, I even say that Anders has the cleaner boxing, you know, better technique off the counter. And again, adding in the factor that he could hurt Stewart. All these advantages that Anders had from the first fight really gives me a lot of confidence in him here, because again, it might not play out exactly how it did the first fight, but when we're looking at the different facets of MMA, what true advantage does Stewart have over Anders? I mean, maybe he just outpoints him at distance. I guess Anders can maybe go back to his old ways. Maybe this fight that he had the first time with Stewart was a mirage. Maybe you know, he just showed up looking great and Stewart just didn't have a good performance, that sort of thing. But when we go back and look at that fight, we saw who the better wrestler was, we saw who the better clinch fighter was, and we saw who's more capable of hurting the other. And it's not to say that Stewart can't hurt Anders, but going back and watching it, I mean, Anders had Stewart almost done. Like it was just one illegal knee away from getting the stoppage there, and that's why I like Anders again. It's just again, maybe this you know, this fight ready camp change is a mirage. Maybe he goes back to fighting his old ways. But I saw better Eric Anders, to be honest with you. Even before he hurt Stewart, you could just tell he was actually moving a lot better. He had better footwork, better mobility. He just looked more focused. He actually came in with a game plan. He, you know, actually wanted to fight at a decent pace. You know, he wasn't just content countering the whole time. You know, in the past he would counter to a fault, whereas in this fight he actually went for it, right? You know, he wanted to clinch with Stewart when they were kind of brawling a little bit at the beginning, right? So again, maybe it's a different or maybe Anders goes back to his old ways, but this is just a fight that first performance that Eric Anders had against Darren Stewart not too long ago, mind you, just gives me a lot of confidence in him here. And I'm going to pick him outright to win. I'm not necessarily going to say that he gets it done by TKO in round one. I do think that the durability over the larger sample size prevails. Stewart does have good durability overall, so I'm going to pick Anders to win by decision, but he does have more finishing equity of the two, in my opinion, just based on what we saw in the first fight. And I'm one of these people, could I just say, for rematches, I am open to the fact that it might not play out exactly how it did the first fight, but I always note the different facets of MMA where one fighter had the advantage over the other. And when we map out everything here, and in other rematches as well, I just think that Anders has many, and just Stewart just doesn't. He just doesn't have really any advantages over Anders. Maybe he could land a little bit more at distance while the two are in open space, but beyond that, it's tough to really trust Stewart in this spot, right? So pick is Eric Anders, and we're going to last fight on the prelims to close this off. We were in the main card, Drew Dober and Brad Riddell. So strikers delight here. Better matchup for both of them, really, than their previous one. Previous few in the case of Riddell. Riddell doesn't worry about a guy taking him down here in all likelihood. Dober is not a willing wrestler, especially these days. And, Dober, he's not fighting Islam Makhachev here. So in theory, this is a much more favorable matchup for both of them, right? Of course, one guy's going to win and one guy's going to lose. But in terms of just keeping the fight upright, keeping the fight on the feet where they both excel, this is a good spot for both of them, right? And what my eyes tell me is they're both great technical strikers. They both have good defense. They both have power in their hands. Riddell's got actually underrated power, and let me explain that. He has obviously 3 decision wins in the UFC, but going back on tape, he hurt every single opponent that Riddell faced. He hurt him, right? So going back, let's start from the top, right? Jamie Malarkey, he hurt him badly, just beat the crap out of Malarkey, basically. Malarkey ended up clipping him, took his back briefly, but for the most part, that fight was an ass kicking, right? And then Magomed Mustafayev, opening exchange, he hurt Mustafayev bad. He got credited for a knockdown there. And then even against Alex De Silva, and Alex De Silva fight was interesting because it was a fight live that, you thought it would be an eye poke because, there was an exchange. Riddell hit De Silva, and then De Silva just kind of grabbed his eye like, you poked me in the eye. But you could see clear as day in the replay. It was a knuckle to the eye of De Silva. So Riddell's got good power in his hands, and he's a great technical striker. The city kickboxing striking coach, right, is Riddell. So and Dober's a great striker himself. Muay Thai background, light on his feet, good pace, good output, good power, good shin. Both of them do as well. So, and I love Drew Dober. I've actually made a good amount of money on him in the past. I bet him as a big underdog against Hackprest, Alexander Hernandez. So he's a guy, Marco Polo Reyes as well. He's a guy that I've always kind of thought was pretty underrated. And now, everybody respects his game a lot more now too. So you love to see it, but as it pertains to the matchup, man, they're really, really similar to one another, to be honest with you. I don't see a clear edge for either guy. I favor Dober in the footwork department, but beyond that, I think it's going to come down to who's a little bit sharper, who's a little bit quicker, who's a little bit more technical on fight night. And I think it's as coin flippy 50-50-ish as you could possibly imagine, right? The fight might not play out like that, but when we're actually looking at how they match up stylistically at the time we're recording this on paper, it's very, very close. They're both great strikers. I have a lot of respect for both of their games. So I think we're going to see a fight that probably goes the distance because they are durable. They are defensively sound, despite the fact that they both have power. But it's just going to come down to who's just going to be landing a little bit more. And I slightly edged Dober, but again, I have a lot of respect for Riddell's game. Wouldn't want to bet Dober at this line, even though if you look at Dober historically, he's actually not lost a fight in the UFC because he was outstruck. All of his losses in the UFC, most of them anyway, but, recent ones at least, the Makhachev loss, the Dariush loss, Aubin Mercy, Efren Escudero, and even Silva, no contest because he tested positive, but for steroids, that is. But all of Dober's issues have been against guys, for the most part, taking him down and submitting him. He doesn't have to worry about that here. When he's gone up against strikers, he's done well, right? He's done well. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this matchmaking, and I'm really excited to see who gets their hand raised because I think it's as close as you could possibly get in terms of the fight. Jamal Hill and Paul Craig. So another going along with that trend. We got one guy that needs takedowns here, needs to get the fight to the ground in Paul Craig. And we got a guy here in Jamal Hill who's going to want to keep it upright, sprawl and brawl, and basically win the fight by knockouts. When we got this matchup here, I got to give a lot of credit to Paul Craig, because that last fight against Hua, and, I get it. Hua, he's not in his prime anymore. He's far from it. But when you actually look at Craig, how he looked from the eye test, he was actually setting up his takedowns. He was faking going up high with a strike, would duck down under. I thought his striking looked better than ever. Muay Thai striker, was feinting, utilizing a lead leg kick, mixing up his attack, body kick, utilizing straight punches. Like, Paul Craig looked pretty damn good in his last fight against Shogun, who I will say. Now, is that enough for me to pick him here? No. But I think that this is a pretty good test for both guys. On the feet, I got to favor Hill. Just a better striker from a technique perspective, a power perspective, a durability perspective. He's got higher output. Hill is a guy I think is very talented. I think he has upside. I just think that he's got a couple issues, specifically with his striking defense. Doesn't do the best job moving his head off the center line, hittable off the counter. Could do a better job of keeping his hands high. And then also his takedown defense, right? We saw Darko Stocic take him down 6 times. There's regional footage of Hill getting taken down, getting his back taken. And again, I know that he's improved since then, but has he improved enough to where he could, stuff takedowns from another guy that, is a step up in competition, a step up in class, right? And we're going to find out. So I'm not doubting Hill. I like him. I actually think he has a lot of upside, but this is going to be a fight where if it does go to the ground, it could be very, very interesting, because Craig's a good submission grappler, and he's definitely showing a lot more urgency to get off of his back. I mean, he still pulls guard, which I'm not a big fan of, but in terms of actually just sweeping from bottom and not just settling there like he did in the first Shogun fight, he's actually not doing that anymore. He's actually showing the urgency to scramble, get up off of his back, and then from the top position, get in an advantageous position, right? So I favor Jamal Hill here. I think he probably gets a knockout. Craig's durability has never been the best. We've seen him, again, it's been a little while, but, he was knocked out by Alonzo Menafield. He was knocked out by Khalil Rountree, and he was knocked out by Tyson Pedro. So even though he hasn't been knocked out, officially in recent fights, he did actually get knocked out briefly on the mats against Shogun Hua in the first fight. Going back and watching it on film, I believe it was in round 2, Shogun hit him with a hammer fist, I believe, with ground and pound on the ground. And Craig looked like he went out there for a moment. He woke back up. Immediately, but that's a concern in general. So I'm not certain. What I'm saying is, just because Craig hasn't been knocked out in 4 fights doesn't mean that Hill can't knock him out. I think Hill probably does knock him out, right? So pick is Jamal Hill. I hope both guys look good. I think they both look better than ever in their last fights. I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Next fight, we got Damian Maia and Bilal Muhammad, and I'll just get another comment in here. I believe it's from Christian again. What's up, Christian? Christian Rodriguez, what's up, buddy? My 2 punts in like IDFS, Marvin, Vettori, Paul Craig. Good luck, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to definitely be playing some of those guys as well. Like we talked about, I make a bunch of lineups, so it's really not I'm not exactly being bold there, but those are 2 guys for sure that if they do win, I would imagine be a pretty big score, because if Craig wins, I have to think then he would have to, probably finish Hill, on the ground, or I suppose he could catch him with something on the feet. It doesn't seem as likely though. But if Craig wins, probably be a low ownership. He's also cheap, and it would come from grappling success, I would think. And in terms of Vettori, same type of deal, right? 5-round fight. He's got extra 2 rounds, obviously, but his way of beating Adesanya is getting the fight to the ground, earning top control time, and kind of winning the fight that way. I'm not sold that he finishes Adesanya on the ground. Adesanya is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. He's definitely got some competencies as a submission grappler, as we'll discuss later. But I do hear what you're saying there 100%. I will have some exposure to those guys, and I wish you the best of luck. Damian Maia and Bilal Muhammad. So very, very interesting fight here. We got 2 guys that there's a wide age gap, 11 years difference between Muhammad and Maia. Maia coming in here longer than a year layoff. There's just a lot of Damian Maia is a legend. Let me just start out by saying he's just a great fighter. He was, no doubt UFC first ballot Hall of Famer, but there's just a lot of red flags on him at this point in his career, to be honest with you. He's 43 now. He's coming off a TKO loss. He opened a jiu-jitsu museum at the end of last year, which congrats to him, but it makes me question if he's all in on fighting anymore, right? That's kind of what I question about Maia. And I've heard interviews, he says he wants to fight a couple more times, and that's great. But I just don't know if he's all in or not. And that's just something that I got to be concerned about. Whereas if on the Muhammad side, we know Muhammad's all in. This is the best form Muhammad's been in. He's on a tremendous winning streak. No contest last time out, obviously. But, before that, his last fight was last loss, that is, was against Jeff Neal. And since then, he's rattled off 4 consecutive wins. And what the fight comes down to basically is, Maia has to get takedowns, I think, early. He needs to take Muhammad down in round 1 or round 2 and either hold him there long enough to win the round with control or submit Muhammad. And if Maia doesn't do that, I think he's going to struggle mightily. There is a fair point out there that suggests Muhammad has not faced a submission grappling ace on the level of Maia or a good of chain wrestler as Maia. But the glimpses I've seen out of Muhammad's takedown defense and just how he looks from an offensive grappling standpoint gives me enough confidence in him confidence in me to back him as in terms of a pick here. I think that when you want to put a guy like Belal Muhammad on his back foot, you need to be a better technical striker than him, and you need to have power in your hands. Like guys like Jeff Neal, guys like Lyman Good, right? Alan Jouban for the first couple of rounds until he slowed down. Guys like that, Vicente Luque comes to mind. Because even Leon Edwards, his last fight, even though we got to see it play out for a round, if you don't have the power to really keep Muhammad at bay and the technical striking acumen, he will be the guy that's the pressure fighter. He's more than comfortable pressuring you against the fence. And one thing I noticed with Maia, even though he's a very good chain wrestler, could transition from a single leg to a double leg, take the back in the clinch, sink in the body triangle. Maia's game is basically, as a southpaw striker, he'll just feint with his lead hand, try and back you up against the fence. And then he wants to basically corner you, pressure you, and then he'll try and take you down near the fence. Maia doesn't do the best job with his takedowns if you actually put him on his back foot. It sort of forces the shot out of him. And I think that's what Muhammad will try and do. And Muhammad's a smart guy, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign graduate. I expect him to come in with a sprawl and brawl game plan. Again, it's easier said than done against a guy like Maia, but I think that Muhammad's going to put him on his back foot, and he's just a much better striker. He's more varied. He could switch stances. He just has a far higher output. And I am a bit concerned about Maia just looking significantly regressed with all the circumstances we talked about. And again, age is something that is important in fighting. And we've seen guys like Francisco Trinaldo, Yoel Romero, these guys, they have success late in their careers, but again, with Maia, it's just now we got to take into consideration, when he did fight all these killers, Covington, Usman, and Woodley, and then went on this win streak. That's now 2 years away, about right. And now he's coming off a layoff, a stoppage loss, and I'm not even necessarily sold that if Maia gets Muhammad down, that's like the round, like that's a wrap. I mean, it could be, but Burns was able to work up a couple times. Rocco Martin was able to work up. Rocco Martin actually briefly mounted Damian Maia. Same thing with Banner Askren as well. But it just gives me a lot of pause with Maia. Again, stylistically, if Maia was in his prime, it wouldn't be a bad fight for him, assuming that, Maia doesn't have a great takedown defense. Maybe I'm overestimating Muhammad's takedown defense. But where they're at right now, I got to favor Belal Muhammad here. And I'm going to pick him to win here by decision. Just hasn't shown one-hitter quitter power. And that's how I think he gets it done. He can maybe wear Maia out with like volume and attrition because Maia doesn't have the good cardio. And we know Muhammad has great cardio. Muhammad actually gets stronger as the fight goes. He actually closes out a lot of fights strong. Even against Lyman Good when he was rocked in round 3, he actually took Lyman Good's back at the very end of the fight and left a good impression. Even though he lost the round there, it was nice to see him be resilient and actually go for it, regardless of, the deck being stacked against him in that round. And even the same thing with Alan Jouban. Just was getting demolished in the first couple of rounds. And then in round 3, he came on strong. Jouban got a little tired, and he just had this look in his eyes like, what do I need to do to get this guy out of here, right? So remember the name. I'm going to pick it. That's his nickname if you weren't already aware. Remember the name, Belal Muhammad. Next fight, we got Nathan Diaz and Leon Edwards. Got another comment in here. Warren, what's up, Warren? Hey, AJ, it's DJ Fish. What's up, brother? You're the best. Enjoying the show. Hey, man, I love you. I wish you nothing but the best. And good luck on your contest, man. Thank you for your support. Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. So I think it's a pretty poor stylistic matchup for Nate Diaz, and I love Nate Diaz, but I got to be honest before I'm being nice, right? And I'm a guy that has backed Nate in the past. I backed him against Pettis, but this is a far more tougher matchup for him. And you could obviously tell that based on the odds, but I'm going to tell you why. So we're talking about the striking. Leon is far more technical, more defensively sound, just better fighting at range. Diaz is just so hittable. His head movements can be much improved. He telegraphs his attack. Leon's just a better athlete, a much better athlete at this stage, just sharper. And so Leon will have plenty of opportunities to counter Nate, specifically with like the straight left. I think will be there for him. And I think he could hurt Nate. Nate's coming off, 2 losses to Masvidal and McGregor, the second fight that is, where he was knocked down 5 times and absorbed, get this, 276 significant strikes between McGregor and Masvidal in 8 rounds of time. And this is another 5-round fight, by the way. So even though Edwards hasn't shown to be this volume machine in his whole UFC career, he will have plenty of opportunities to land here on Nate. And so in terms of the striking, got to favor Leon, just much better offensively, defensively, just sharper. And then also the wrestling and clinch exchanges will favor Leon as well. Leon's the bigger man here. He is. He's the more natural lightweight. Leon couldn't make 155. No, he's a big guy for welterweight. Nate was able to make 155 in the past. Maybe not as easy anymore, but he could still do it nonetheless. Nate defends takedowns at a rate of 42%. Just going back to the Masvidal fight, Masvidal took him down with a body lock with ease. And I'm not expecting Edwards to finish Nate on the ground or anything like that. Nate's a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but could Edwards take him down and earn a lot of top control time and land some ground strikes? Absolutely he can. He did that to Rafael dos Anjos. And Rafael dos Anjos, when he fought Nate Diaz, just absolutely demolished him. Just a complete, just bell-to-bell, just destruction with top control and more damage down the way. And we saw that Edwards, and granted this were at different points in their careers, but still holds true that Edwards is a stronger grappler, was able to take down Dos Anjos 3 times and earn several minutes of top control. So Edwards is better in the clinch with his technical concepts, his head positioning, and he's going to be stronger. He's going to be the better wrestler here. He's the sharper striker as well. And he's just the guy that kind of what we talked about, like the previous matchup, right? I don't have to question Edwards' motivation, right? This is the most fired up he's been. He's 29 years old. He's in the prime of his career. Whereas Nate at 36, and God bless him for doing this, but he's got other things going on. He has other, passions that he has on the side that, there's a reason why Nate isn't fighting as frequently as he used to. He has other stuff that he has going on, and he's doing well at those sorts of things, right? So I just don't know how motivated Nate is. I know that he has to be somewhat motivated here. Otherwise, he wouldn't take the fight. He's one of these guys who knows he could pick and choose at this stage of his career, but I don't think he's all in, to be honest with you. And that's just purely speculation. But at least on the Edwards side, I don't have to question whether or not Leon is all in. This is a huge opportunity for Leon. So just an absolutely dreadful stylistic match for Diaz. I think it's a great stylistic match for Edwards. That's why he's my prediction to win. Should be able to beat him everywhere, to be honest with you. Steven, what's up, Steven? Great point, AJ. Hey, man, thank you. Hey, and good luck on your show that you're on today. That's awesome. Shout out to Steven. So co-main event, right? Figueiredo and Moreno, the rematch, right? So obviously I went back and watched the first fight, and what did we really learn, right? So they're very, very skilled, and they're very evenly matched. Why you got to favor, why I got to favor, you could do whatever you want, of course. Why I got to favor Figueiredo in the rematch is because, as we saw in the first fight, he does have more power. That's something that we all knew going into the first fight, but it really played a difference in Figueiredo winning those first couple rounds. Just the optics of him walking Moreno down, landing the harder shots helped him win. But as we saw, Moreno could take his punches. Not to say that he will for sure take him again. He's a lock that his chin will hold up, but Moreno is game. Moreno has a high pace. He's got good cardio. He's not easy to submit. He's a good submission grappler, and he was able to out-wrestle Figueiredo. Actually took Figueiredo down, took Figueiredo down more than Figueiredo took him down, right? And so it's a close fight. We saw in the first one, again, the first 2 rounds went to Figueiredo. Round 3, round 4 went to Moreno, and round 5 went to Figueiredo. He was a little bit fresher of the two, was able to get some top control to seal off the fight. Moreno was a little bit banged up at the end of the fight, and then I get it. On the flip side, you could say, well, Figueiredo was maybe not coming in 100%. He said he was sick. He had 2 weight cuts. He's a big guy for the weight class. I get all that. But what I'm trying to say is we have a close fight here. And I don't agree with the line being as wide as it is. That's not to say that I'm betting Moreno, but if I were to line this, I would line it closer to a pick'em with a slight lean towards Figueiredo. I get it. There is maybe narrative that this time he knocks him out, but I'm just not sold that he can. I do think that there's a chance that it plays out for 5. And let's even talk about the first fight on the flip side. Moreno actually rocked Figueiredo too, right? So it's not as if it's one-way traffic. Like Figueiredo has all the finishing equity in this fight. Moreno has some finishing upside as well. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Moreno has a better chance to win inside the distance than Figueiredo, but he has some chance to win inside the distance. So game fighters could fight at high paces, could take each other's best shots. They both could take each other down. Moreno took Figueiredo down a bit more in the first fight. Perhaps Moreno switches up his game plan a little bit. Maybe he wants to go out there and try and wrestle Figueiredo right away instead of waiting until he's losing the fight, right? Moreno's never been a guy, despite the fact that I love him and I've bet him in quite a few spots, he's never been a guy that comes in with like a clear game plan. He'll just kind of, do whatever he feels like doing in the moment. At least that's how it appears. And then just, kind of try and prove that he's the better man in that area. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, if Moreno fights with a game plan here, he could win this fight. So again, it's an if. I mean, I would be investing in the unknown if I were to take that chance because he just hasn't shown to do that often. But it is a fight that Moreno could win, even though I'm picking for Figueiredo to win this fight, win the rematch. I see it as close. Again, the only true advantage that I think Figueiredo has over Moreno is power. And that might be enough for him to win. But is just power alone enough for me to bet Figueiredo at -200? Personally, it's not. Again, I wish everybody nothing but the best if you bet Figueiredo in this fight. But for me, I need to have more value on that line. I need to be confident that at this particular line, Figueiredo has many advantages beyond just power. Again, he's got probably more finishing equity, but is his round winning equity that much more compelling than Moreno? I don't think so. So we'll see again. It should be fun. They got a little feisty at the press conference a couple days ago. So who knows? That's all narrative based, but it should be a fun fight. Expect both guys to come in and come out and look great. Israel Adesanya, Marvin Vettori, another rematch, right? So I'm not the judge that scored the first fight for Marvin. Let me just say that right away. I did not. And we have, to close out the card, we have another fight that fixed that mold of one guy needs to get the fight to the ground, one guy needs to sprawl and brawl, keep the fight upright, and win there. Israel's the better striker here. Marvin actually has very underrated boxing. He's very good with his pull counters, but going up against a guy like Israel Adesanya, who's just much longer than him, 6 inches of arm reach, 3 inches on each side. The pull counter game might not be the best way for Marvin to approach. We even saw Kevin Holland stun him in round 5 because Holland had a bit longer reach. Marvin was also tired at that point in the fight, but going up against a guy like Israel, I actually think it'll be smart for Marvin to not play the counter role. I actually think he should be the aggressor, try and pressure Israel, get in his face, land his boxing. But that said, I still got to favor Israel on the feet, just more experience as a striker, more technical, more varied. He could switch stances, craftier striker as well. But it'll be on Vettori here to get takedowns, earn top control time, and win at least 3 rounds. I got to be honest with you, like that last fight going against Blachowicz, Israel looked very green still off of his back. Israel's scrambling ability is basically, and kudos to him for not giving up his back, but his ability to scramble when he's actually flat on his back is contingent on him scooting to the fence and working up that way. He couldn't get up near the fence in rounds 4 and round 5 against Jan, and that's why Jan was able to control him. Jan's also a good black belt. He's a big guy. That's also part of the reason too. But Vettori, even if he's not as big as Jan, so it's probably easier for me to explain this way. So like, it's one thing to get taken down by Jan Blachowicz, right? Who took him down with a double leg. I mean, you could see that on the scoreboard and just not even bat an eye really. Oh, he got taken down by Jan. But going back and watching it on film, it was how easily Jan got him down that is the concern, right? Israel didn't really sprawl. He got taken down rather easily. He even got taken down in round 3. He even gave up his back briefly to Jan. He got taken down in round 5 by Jan, mounted briefly at the end of the round. So with this fight, again, maybe there was some chance that Israel just didn't expect Jan to shoot a double on him. Maybe there's that, but there's also just, going into round 5, he still was taken down while Jan was gassed, mind you, and was controlled for the rest of the round. So I can't watch that fight and not be very hesitant on Israel at this line, knowing that if Marvin takes him down, he could just win the round with top control. He could control him there. Marvin is coming off a performance where he landed 11 takedowns and 17 attempts against Kevin Holland. Now, granted, Israel's a much better defensive wrestler than Kevin Holland. Don't get me wrong. But how willing Marvin is, and Marvin's actually a good chain wrestler. He used to be a wrestler that was all reliant on like power and strength, but now he actually has single legs, he has double legs, he has body locks. He has a wide variety of takedowns to get the fight to the ground. And once in top position, he's strong. He's a good submission grappler. He actually lands ground and pound to stay busy in the top position to avoid a referee stand-up. So that's going to be the dynamic of the fight. Can Marvin take him down? And if so, he has a chance to take control Israel from the top position, land non-significant strikes to take the referees out of the equation, not force a stand-up, things like that, and then win the fight that way. And I'm going to pick Marvin Vettori to win this fight. I just tend to think that if you control where the fight goes and you have a clear advantage on the ground, and even though Israel has a clear advantage on the feet, I think that Marvin being so durable and being an underrated striker, I think there's some chance that Israel doesn't knock him out. Again, there is still a chance he can for sure, but I tend to think that durability prevails. And really the only time we saw Marvin hurt was his last fight against Holland, and even then he recovered. And I don't really consider Israel, even though he has some knockouts on his resume, he's not a true one-hitter quitter type of middleweight, right? Again, he's just very precise. But in terms of like his, pure knockout power, I actually think that Cannonier has a bit more compelling knockout power. Guys like that, even Kelvin Gastelum, I think as well. But again, Israel still can hurt him, of course. But again, I think that Marvin's good durability, never being knocked out, good enough for him to keep the fight or stay durable, stay present in the fight, get the fight to the ground, earn top control time, and just land non-significant strikes to get the referees out of the equation should help him win the fight. So I'm going to pick Marvin Vettori here. I know I picked quite a few underdogs to win. We'll see how that happens, right? I mean, it should be a fun card, though, right? I mean, it's UFC 263, 14 fights. Can't say it enough. Everybody, all fights are a go. It should be a fun time. If you guys want to stick around for a little bit longer, just want to say like 30 minutes or so, 30 seconds or so. If you want to tell my bets for the event, you could do so by going to the betting hub on dailyfanmma.com. And in the betting hub, you will get my UFC bets. If you want the Bellator bets, which take place in about the event itself takes place in 45 minutes. My bets aren't until the main card, so you still got more time. You would have to go to the Bellator tab of dailyfanmma.com and get them there. So dailyfanmma.com, not only is it betting content, but it's DFS content, optimizers, projections, ownership projections as well, PFL content, Bellator content, you name it, we got it. We got expert rankings as well. So dailyfanmma.com, in MMA's industry leading content provider. I want to wish you guys nothing but the best. Good luck on the event and take care.